In a world filled with pain and painful memories, one might believe that running away is the only way to escape the burden of the past. But once you leave everything behind and search for a refuge away from the troubles, you may find yourself trapped in a place far more terrifying than you ever imagined. This is the story of someone who fled from their dark past, only to face something mysterious and horrifying in an old house filled with silence, a silence that hides secrets beyond their comprehension. When I left everything behind, I thought I was escaping my pain, the regret that haunted me after the accident where I lost Dan. I ran away from it all, from his memories that chased me in every corner. The house, the place I decided to return to, seemed like a sanctuary at first. A small, old, dilapidated house. I thought it would be comforting, a retreat for the silence I needed, but when I arrived, I discovered that I was wrong. The house was much smaller than I remembered. It was as though time had shrunk everything, made everything feel more subdued, as if life itself had vanished from it. I had expected to find a place similar to the house I left behind in my childhood, but what I found was a home full of dust and decay. The peeling paint fell off like dead skin, and the wood, once covered in bright colors, had become brittle and eroded, as though time had consumed everything beautiful in it. The windows were shut, as if they didn't want to reveal what was happening inside this ruined house. I entered, trying to tell myself that I would find comfort here, even though I wasn't sure of anything. The house was empty of life, dead like a body without a soul. I wandered through the rooms. Each step I took filled the place with sound. The floorboards creaked under my weight, and every squeak seemed to echo, like the house itself was groaning under the weight of time. I tried to gather myself and ignore the unsettling feeling, but something was wrong. Then strange sounds started coming from the walls. At first they were faint, like distant whispers, but as time passed, they became clearer. I began hearing footsteps, at first soft and slow, but then louder, moving from one room to another. I turned quickly, but no one was there. The sound seemed to be coming from nowhere. It was the same sound I'd heard in the past, Dan's voice, but there was something different about it. It was echoing in my ears, seeping into my mind in a strange way. I didn't believe it at first. I thought I was just tired, that I was imagining things because of my grief. I tried to ignore the sound, but with each passing day it became clearer. It moved from room to room, following me. I felt like I was trapped in this place, as though the sound was chasing me into every corner. But the most terrifying part was what began to happen with the mirror. One day, I was washing dishes in the kitchen, and when I looked into the mirror, I saw something strange. There was something moving behind me, something I couldn't quite make out. At first, I thought it was just my reflection, but the longer I looked, the more something felt off. There was something else, something that shouldn't have been there. It was as if it was following me in the mirror. At first, the movements were small, just hints. But as the days went by, my reflection began to act strangely. There were changes in the facial expressions, and there was something wrong with the eyes. My eyes in the mirror became dull, lifeless, as if something else was watching me. When I passed by the mirror that night, I saw something unexpected. I was standing in front of the mirror, and when I looked into my eyes, I felt a strange sensation. My eyes in the mirror were wide and cold, devoid of life, tracking my every movement. There was a strange sense of inquiry in those eyes, as if it was asking me, "What are you doing here?" But the most terrifying part was that I was seeing myself in the mirror, but not as I saw myself in reality. My eyes were dark, as though they had no soul, and my face was pale, like I wasn't the one watching in the glass. And at that moment, the mirror began to distort. The face in the mirror smiled a distorted, unnatural smile. And when I slowly reached out to touch the glass, I felt something strange pushing from inside the mirror. It was as if something heavy was trying to escape from the glass itself. I quickly pulled my hand back, but before I could move away, there was a violent thud against the glass. I felt something press against my chest, and I stumbled away. I ran away from the mirror, trying to escape what I couldn't explain. But things got more terrifying as time went on. At night, the whispers became clearer. They weren't just ordinary sounds, but as if they were coming from the walls themselves. They were calling my name, but they didn't sound like Dan anymore. The voice was rougher, filled with anger. "You left me to die. How could you leave me here?" The voice filled the place, echoing from every corner, from beneath the floorboards, from between the walls, as if the house itself had come alive. But the most terrifying part was what started happening with the things that had disappeared. My keys, my watch, small things I used, they were all vanishing. And the next morning, I would find them in strange places. In the bathroom, inside the fridge, even in my shoes. But the worst part was the mirror. Every time I passed by it, there was something watching me. My reflection followed me. Its eyes tracked me as if it was trying to control me. One day, I decided to cover the mirror with a sheet. I was terrified, but every time I left the room, the sheet was on the floor when I returned, and the glass was gleaming, as if nothing had ever been there. Then came the day the mirror shattered. I was asleep at the time when I heard the sound. It was like the glass was shattering under immense pressure. I ran to the room, and there, in the middle of the room, the glass was broken, and a tall figure stood where my reflection once was. But it wasn't me. It was bigger, darker, and it loomed over me. It hovered within the broken glass, dripping dark, viscous fluids. It smiled at me, but the smile was filled with malice. "Come with me, forever," it whispered, its voice chilling. I ran, but the walls seemed to close in on me. They stretched and twisted, as if the house itself was trying to swallow me. I ran up to the attic, but the shadow followed me. The whispers grew louder, mixing with Dan's voice and with another voice, a strange one I couldn't explain. The voice screamed in my face, telling me to return, telling me to surrender. At that moment I fainted. When I awoke, I found myself in the attic, the walls groaning and crawling around me. The sound was louder now, the voices blending together. I knew then that I wouldn't leave this place. In the end, the person finds themselves facing invisible forces, things beyond human understanding. Perhaps running away was never the solution, and perhaps returning to this place was the beginning of the end, where they meet the ghost of a past they can't escape from. Will they survive this terror, or will the past haunt them forever, just as memories pursued them in every corner of this dark house?